comments may not be read due to time limitations. Emailed comments will be accepted until the conclusion of staff's presentation for the specific item and will become part of the record for the meeting. Also, if you emailed your public comment prior to the meeting, these comments will be acknowledged at the meeting and archived as part of the record. And I will repeat Irene's email address one more time. It is iwerby, iwerby, at ci.cloverdale.ca.us. And with that, we will go on to the next item. And under communications, I had submitted 2 items. Irene, do you want to summarize those? And you got to take yourself off mute.
Not used to speaking so much. So the first one was just a summary of the CPUC actions. And after today's meeting, I'll go ahead and upload those onto the agenda packet on our website. So those actions include information update on the California Climate Credit, moratorium on utility disconnections, suspended renewal requirements, ensuring full access to care, non-essential shutoffs, protecting contractors, reliable broadband, and as well, they also provide informational websites. The second was information on the League, which is the California League of Cities, COVID-19 update. And again, that just includes information on current policy making and judicial review. FEMA updates, upcoming events and webinars that are available to our local officials and staff. Federal updates, and then of course, just informational resources that everybody can use.
Great, thank you. Any comments or question on those? I wanted to make sure the mayor was aware of them, so if he wanted to discuss them. Just go ahead and unmute yourself, Gus, if you have anything to add.
No, I really don't have anything to add, but just backing up for 1 second, Irene, is there any way that we can tell how many viewers we have on this meeting?
So in addition to the panelists here, we currently have 3 attendees. We have Chris Parker, if you want me to read them out loud, Sue Dahl, and then Ms. Deborah Howell is also listening in.
No, I was just curious if there was any way for us to see who was participating. And Sue, I just want to say I shot you an email just to make sure that you and David were okay, because I haven't seen you at home for a while. So hopefully everything's okay. Thank you.
So no, unfortunately at this time, because we are only receiving public comments via email, Mayor, it is only the host, which is myself, who is currently able to see who the participants are.
Oh, actually, I think I can see them. I think that all of the attendees, the panelists can see them. So
okay, if you tab over, perfect.
If you go to, if you go to participants and bring that participants window open, you'll see the panelists, which are members of the subcommittee, and then attendees on the right-hand side. So yeah, we can see who is checking in.
Okay.
Yeah, I know, learning every day. Okay, so with that, we will move on to public comment. Members of the public may comment on any matter not on this agenda. Please limit comments to 3 minutes. Members of the public may comment on items on the agenda when the subcommittee considers that item. Irene, do we have any public comment via email?
No comments have been received, and I do see the mayor's hand up on the chat. I just wanted to make sure that I could lower it, or if there was anything else to add. Yeah, just unmute yourself if you have something, Gus.
No, that was from before. You can
okay.
Undo it. Thank you.
Okay, so yeah, and then one of the new items in our repertoire is Zoom etiquette, which I always forget to do that too. But after you raise your hand, you're supposed to take it down. So we'll just keep reminding ourselves to do that. So if that concludes public comment, we'll move on to approval of minutes. Mr. Mayor, I'm assuming that you've had a chance to review the minutes.
I have, and I'd like to move for approval, please.
Okay, so moved, and minutes are approved. And what a different world February 27th was. All right, moving on to item number 5, current items for discussion, Assembly Bill 5, worker status. I'm assuming that is Mr. Kelly. And you have to unmute yourself, David.
Okay, sorry about that.
Gee, what were those last couple of words before you were unmuted?
Right.
Yeah, so we would probably not repeat them. So,
I thank you, Chair Bagby. I'm going to turn this item over to Finance Director Susie Holmes to give an overview of the proposed policy, why we're bringing this forward, and just for reference, this is also on the council agenda meeting packet tomorrow. So Susie, if you want to kind of take it from there.
Okay, thank you, David. This policy is a policy that the state mandated. It's SB 998. The main things in this policy are that.
oh, I think we're still on Assembly Bill 5, aren't we? Were you going to cover 5? Or do you want to go ahead? Do you want to skip to 998, SB 998?
Sorry.
No. Are you doing both?
No.
I don't think that's you. I think that's David.
Okay.
David,
Well,
I think you're Assembly Bill 5, worker status.
Well, this item was referred to subcommittee by the council at the request of Councilmember Brigham. The issue is that this bill identifies what were previously independent contractors as employees, and such triggers a whole bunch of requirements related to having employees. And I think the concern is that in Cloverdale, there are a number of nonprofit organizations that have used or utilized independent consultants to perform various aspects of their functions. And the concern is that by classifying them as employees, it may make it infeasible for them to continue with their business model as it is currently written. I think the interest was the city writing a letter to our state representatives to request that they really revisit that bill and reconsider some of the language, specifically as it applies to nonprofits, but maybe also more broadly. I think we probably want to just jump in. Gus and I can jump in because I think that things were kind of being overtaken by events on this bill.
And both Gus and I have been in meetings. First time, I think I was at a League of Cities meeting where the governor was attending, and this item was brought up, and he said, "We recognize it, and we know it's an issue." And then I believe while I was at that meeting, Gus was attending the Sonoma County Legislative meeting on my behalf, where I think he heard something similar. Gus, do you want to? So I think that it was already changing quite a bit. The legislators and the governor seem to recognize that this is a problem. This is a bill that is not working how we intended it to. But now with our current crisis, I think it's just accelerated it to the point where it's going to be moot for a little while. I know. What do you think, Mr. Mayor?
No, I think you're absolutely right. And everything that I've been hearing is that it's going to be redone. It's going to be reconsidered. In addition, I was reading somewhere today that nonprofits could apply for some of this care package as well. And for some reason that led me to believe that they would have the resources to pay some of their employees under this new SB 5, or I should say AB 5, until it's been revamped.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
and I'll have a chance on Friday at the legislative call to bring this up to all of the legislative representatives, plus we're having our assemblymen on that call. So I can bring it up and just say, is this going to be part of the package of special bills that are going to be addressed? And just make sure that they understand that this is still a concern. But I think it's been, think the military term is OBE, overtaken by events on this one. Because it's really, so much of the employment structures and concerns, so much is going to change in the coming months. So, I think we should keep an eye on it. Have Jose keep an eye on it, and then Gus and I keep an eye on it. Is that satisfactory to? Mr.
Yeah, that's fine with me, Melanie. I really don't think that much is going to happen in the immediate future, and I'm not so sure that the nonprofits, the History Center, the Performing Arts Center are going to be functioning within the next 30 or 40 days.
Yeah, so. I think it's just I think just keep a watch on it. What do you think, David?
Chair, I agree. Maybe for staff, we can move it to under standing items and continue to monitor and track it in case we want to revisit this issue, or we'll revisit it, for every meeting and be able to provide timely updates at that time.
Yeah, and I'll make sure I'm monitoring it at the league and at the Sonoma County legislators, because it's one of the bills. It's on our watch list. I think it's on everybody's watch list, and that's why I'm not concerned. But I don't think we're not going to be very effective sending a letter out about this right now. We got bigger fish to fry. So if it's all right with everybody, I think we can move on to item B, which is the water disconnection policy, which is Susie.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, so this SB 998 requires that the city have a water discontinuation policy in place. That's what we're trying to do here. The SB 998 also stipulates what items have to be in the policy. We basically took the policy that the state required and we created, with the help of Myers-Nave, this policy. The difference, it's going to be a lot more work for our staff, in that we currently have where your bills are due and payable when you receive them, but they're not considered past due for 25 days. Now we cannot consider them past due until 45 days, and then we have to give another notice prior to 10 days. So it ends up giving residents approximately 65 days of being past due before we can shut them off. Then if they come in and they receive any type of assistance from the state, SSI, Medi-Cal, any type of assistance that causes them to be at 200% of the federal poverty level, which is in one of the reports that I think you'll see tomorrow, that then we still cannot shut them off if they can say that it would cause a health issue. They receive the assistance and they promise to make payments up to a year. So then it just stretches things out. It's going to be a record keeping nightmare, but that's what we have to do. I think that staff has come up with a good plan of attack on how to do this. We're trying to make it work separately, being apart and trying to figure out how to change the back of the bills and do all the things that we need to do, but it's getting done. So that's what this is. I think, yeah, the other big difference is that if water is in a landlord's name, that we have to let the tenant know that the water is being disconnected within 10 days and give them the opportunity to make it right. Yeah, I think this is there's gonna be a lot of discussion around this as we get into it further, but for now, we just need to get the policy in place.
Just a quick question, if I can, Susie. You said it's going to be a lot of work of tracking the individual delinquencies. Do we have that much delinquency in the water department?
Yes, we send out approximately 250 to 300 late notices, and then we usually do the shut-off notices, the actual door hangers, about 25 to 50 a month.
Wow, that's a lot. And then actual shutoffs?
Actual shutoffs are between 10 and 15.
And then they have to pay the current. Right now, it's $90 to have it hooked back up.
Yes. And this,
yeah.
this policy will limit the amount that we can charge if someone receives assistance. So
Yeah.
that's, yeah.
That used to be my pet peeve in the banking industry. It was like every time somebody was overdrawn, you charge them $35, and you're not helping their situation. You know, you're just compounding the problem that they have, which is a lack of money. Now all of a sudden you're going to gouge them for maybe 70 or 140 bucks, and it just never made sense. But I understand why we have to do that. So, okay, I didn't realize there was that many 200 notices that we sent out on a monthly basis. And I'm sure it's pretty much chronic, the same ones all the time.
Yeah, for the most part.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. You don't need any direction from us, right, Susie? This is where we're implementing the state. And this is going to go before the council tomorrow?
It will.
Okay, great. All right. Any other comments? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to item C, general fund balances.
Chair, real quickly, just on the last item, I did want to mention that there were some questions raised regarding the financial language in the policy itself regarding the inability to pay and how that is determined. There's a chart that is referenced by a link in the policy itself, and that will change annually depending on the criteria that's set by the state. But I just wanted to point that out, that there actually is an income table that defines very specifically the income limits for the 200% level of poverty level, which is referenced in the policy itself. And that was a concern, I think, of one of the other council members. It wasn't, because it changes, the income limits change, it wouldn't be feasible to put the table into the policy, rather the link, which will be to the income limits, which will be updated annually. So I just wanted to share that with the Finance Admin and Police Subcommittee. Lastly, there also is just concern about the applicability of the policy to mobile home parks, and whether this policy prohibits mobile home park managers from terminating service to individual tenants. It does not appear that this policy, because it pertains to small water systems, doesn't pertain to the individual, parks or managers. If it was part of their lease or rental agreement, and they had some kind of mechanism in that agreement for payment of water service, if the manager, park owner, or property manager was to turn off water service, I don't think this policy addresses that. But that's an outstanding question, and we'll have an answer for the council tomorrow. So I just wanted to just point that out. That was a kind of a technical question that was asked, and we hadn't fully analyzed that for this prior to this meeting.
Well, I have a follow-up question, but I'll defer to the mayor.
Thank you.
We might be on the same page on this. So.
Well, I was specifically going to talk about the Briarwood mobile home park owned by the Thompsons. And I can remember years ago, I was under the impression that we hooked those individuals up with separate meters. Am I right on that? Do you know offhand? Because I know there was a water issue that he was having at the time, because some of the people weren't paying their water directly to him. So I'm pretty sure we had everybody set up on a private meter in Briarwood. Now the other trailer park is the one, I guess, behind across the road from the not the Grapevine, the railroad station bar. I think that's the only one that
No,
we
there's
may.
another one. There's that one on Cloverdale Boulevard.
Oh, Seven
near-
Palms. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think
Very great.
Briarwood might be taken care of on that. But maybe if we could check on that to see if they're separately metered.
Yeah, I imagine that those two other parks, maybe not. And so I guess my question, in anticipation of the council meeting would be, are they turning off the water because it's included as part of the rent and they're in arrears on their rent? Or do they have a separate flat water fee every month? It just doesn't make any practical sense. It just seems like they probably make one payment and then shutting off water is part of their eviction process. So if you could kind of, get some light on that, that would be great.
Yeah, I'm not sure that we know what the lease agreements are at the trailer park, but we
Yeah.
can definitely tell you if there's multiple connections at each of the trailer parks. My understanding is
Yeah.
that there's one that has one connection going in that's metered. What happens after that, I don't know, but I can find out which one it is at least.
Okay.
I don't think that's going to be necessary to find out before our meeting, though. Do you?
Yeah, but, well, yeah, I guess not, but maybe if it's possible to do some of the research. But I just wonder if it's a non-issue because it would be covered under the non-eviction orders.
I think you're right, Chair, that in my experience, often in mobile home parks, the water service is part of
it's part of your rent. Yeah.
rent.
And the only time they'd shut it off is when you're not paying your rent. And then that's under eviction policy anyway. So I'm not sure we need to pursue this farther than that.
Yeah, I guess the issue is that this policy will continue on after the current emergency and after the current restrictions on eviction occur. So that may be what's prompting the question.
Yeah, but it seems to me that this concerns our customers. And the fact is that if they're in a mobile home park and water is part of their rent, they're not our water customer. The owners are water customer. And then, then it becomes the part of the eviction process, and it's just a completely different, that's a whole other kettle of worms.
I agree.
Yeah. The policy does state that if the trailer park owner who owns the water account, if he or she falls delinquent to the point that they would be shut off, then we would have to do door hangers to each of the residents. So there is that. That is one of the changes to this.
Okay. So I guess we'll discuss it further tomorrow, but does that about cover it for you, Gus? Okay. Great. All right. So then moving on to general fund balances again. Who wants to take that on, since that's going to be a changing world?
Well, I'll introduce it, and then I'll let Susie provide the report. This really is just an update and follow-up action that's called for in the council's adopted reserve policy. If you recall, that when the audit was brought forward for fiscal year 18-19, there was an ending balance of approximately 1.2 million, and the reserve policy calls out how that fund balance should be treated. And I think the report that your finance director prepared outlined how those funds would be dispersed into the various reserve accounts. And maybe with that, Susie, you can kind of take it from there and outline for the chair and the mayor how those funds were placed in the reserve accounts.
Sure, I'd be happy to do that. So it's outlined in the report, but the report first says that up to $100,000 of the reserve each year will be set aside until we get to 8%, and that will go into our emergency reserve. We currently, and it's 8% of our general fund expenditures. That would be about $676,000, and we're moving $100,000 into it because of the 1.3 million surplus from last year, and our current emergency reserve will be at 388,000. So we're about 50% there. The contingency reserve is, sorry, I'm having an issue with my 17% of our budgeted expenditures. Our budgeted expenditures are 1.4 million. Our contingency reserve was 1.2 million. And we're going to move the $165,000 into where we now have 1.4 million in our contingency reserve, which is awesome. Because these are funds that can't be spent for anything. They're just sitting in this contingency so that we can make sure we have money for things like this. Our equipment replacement reserve, we have an annual depreciation of plus 5% that's to be moved annually. We're moving 32,000. And then the police vehicle replacement reserve, we're doing 120, our current, we're gonna move 57,000, and we'll have 125,000 in there. The facility replacement and maintenance, the annual depreciation is 47.8. We're going to move that much, and then we'll have 94,664 in there. And the compensated absences, we have $7,500 of non-current employee compensation currently. We have a reserve balance already of 40,000, so we're making no transfers into there. The 3.1 million is what we had as of June 30th, 2019. And of that 3 million, we are moving, I think it was close to 600,000 out into these specific reserve categories.
Great. Mr. Mayor?
Thank you. David, Susie, just one quick question and good report. I'm glad to see that we have, or at least we had, a rather nice surplus. Lord knows, like the chair said, where it is today. But David, I think I'm right with this. Property taxes, the county makes us whole, and they in turn collect the late fees, correct?
That's my understanding, Gus. That's correct.
Okay. So if I don't pay my property taxes, you still get it from the county. They keep my property taxes and the late fee once I pay it.
You're right. What you're referring to is we're what's referred to as a teeter plan county. So
Right.
the county makes all cities whole in non-teeter plans. If people don't pay their taxes, the cities don't get their full allotment. So we get our full allotment, but the benefit then of collecting goes to the county.
Yeah. All the more reason not to extend that payment of April the 10th, which they're not going to do anyhow. But at least we're going to get our money. I don't mean to be selfish, but it makes me feel good that that's coming in. So thank you.
Great. No, I really good report. It's exactly what we asked for. So I'm doubt there will be a lot of questions about it at the council, but looks ready to move forward. So are there any other comments or questions? Gus, do you have anything else? No? Good. Okay, the next item is item D, moratorium on fireworks sales. Who would like to take this? City manager?
Chair and Mayor, I'm happy to take this. So this issue is a matter that the council referred to an ad hoc, the ad hoc committee members that were appointed to review this, either moratorium or a possible ban were included the chair, as well as council member Cruz. However, given that it's a fairly significant policy issue, and that we find ourselves in this current health emergency where social gathering is not permitted, the thought was to agendize this as soon as possible so we could have a discussion whether the council may want to consider a recommendation to place a moratorium on fireworks sales, partly because of the shelter-in-place order in the current emergency, but also because I think we may very well be facing dry conditions related to the amount of rainfall that we've received this year. So we agendized this for consideration by this subcommittee, whether they want to make a recommendation to council to consider a moratorium. Staff did have our city attorney take a look at the municipal code, and there's kind of two separate sets of analysis that were performed. One is relative to the sale of safe and sane fireworks, and the other is relative to the use of safe and sane fireworks. It was determined that the council by resolution can adopt a temporary moratorium that's provided for in the municipal code on the sale of safe and sane, and you can obviously bring that can be brought forward by resolution. However, the current municipal code language provides for the use of safe and sane, which obviously is different. That means if there was no the sale was temporarily banned, folks could still legally use safe and sane fireworks. And because the language in the ordinance or in the municipal code is written as the city attorney calls it in the affirmative, meaning it's an affirmative right, it would require an emergency ordinance to restrict the use of safe and sane fireworks. The issue of a public display, I don't recall that really being a subject of the Muni Code, and so I think that's just a matter of if council or this subcommittee wants to make a recommendation to council to also consider foregoing that because of the current health crisis that we may very well be in July. We could certainly include that in a resolution if so recommended by the subcommittee. But that's a basic overview of the agenda topic, and happy to respond to any questions you may have.
Mr. Mayor, do you have anything?
Yeah, thank you. You know, I really don't think the moratorium on fireworks sales is enough. Not only do we have to do the moratorium on sales, but I think we need to do that emergency resolution as well, banning the use of them in the city limits of Cloverdale until further notice, quite frankly, because we don't know how long this is actually going to last. And as far as the public display at the high school, I don't think the Lions were really planning on doing that this year anyhow because of the AstroTurf that was supposed to be put in on the field. But I would like to see us somehow put a stop to that as well. And I don't know, I think later the chair wants to discuss future events. I don't know if they have to actually apply for a permit with us to put on those fireworks, or if that's something they negotiate with the school district. So, but I'm in favor right now of banning everything, the sale, the use, the whole 9 yards.
So, City Manager, I'm sure you or the chief can expand on this, but it's my understanding that they deal directly with the school. That's what I recall, but I could be wrong for sure. Did you have anything?
In terms of the fireworks display on the 4th of July?
Yeah.
Yeah. Insofar as I've been with the city, they haven't approached us about a permit for that type of event. That's a separate matter, but I do think we should consider a special event permit process, so that not just because of the nature of that type of event, but for all events, so we can have a better opportunity to look at them. But I think generally because they use school grounds, it goes
Yeah.
through the school.
That's what I recall. That's happened in the past. Yes, is that what you?
Yeah,
That sounds familiar.
yeah, I wasn't sure, but I like the idea of the special events permit. I think keeping control over the gathering of folks is going to be well into 2021. So.
Yeah, I think that's a good call. Is just let's get a staff report on that going forward, because it's going to be a further drain on our public resources, public safety resources. I don't know if the chief wants to weigh in on that, but
just that I agree, certainly echo what everybody's saying. And there's an operational aspect to this too, from our standpoint on dealing with this permitting processes. I would agree with that 100%.
Okay. Yeah, I would support moving forward with the mayor's recommendation. I don't want to see, I want to make it really clear to the nonprofits where we are this year. I also think that as far as a large gathering at the high school, that may be another problem that takes care of itself, because it just may not even be allowed. I mean, I'm assuming that most of us watched the governor's press conference at noon today, talking about we are flattening the curve, but when we flatten the curve, we're extending it out. So I just, with this and other summer events, which I think we're going to talk about later and certainly tomorrow, those are just going to be items that are out of our control and are going to be prohibited this year. So, okay. So it sounds like, you have enough direction from us to move forward with that?
Yeah, I think so. So just to confirm, staff will bring forward a resolution to address the, at least in so much as 2020, a temporary ban on the sale of safe and sane fireworks within Cloverdale, as well as an emergency ordinance to prohibit the use of safe and sane, remembering that all the other fireworks are already illegal.
Right.
But we could certainly.
And safe and sane fireworks sold here are then illegal when they go to Mendocino. So because they're banned in Mendocino and Lake County. So
it's just other cities that still provide for the sale of safe and sane. So by being clear that they're not allowed to be used in our city, it'll maybe encourage a couple of folks to not seek them elsewhere to use in the city. So they may be under the same operating conditions as we are with respect to the shelter-in-place order. So
yeah, and I know Petaluma and Sebastopol are considering their own. They're banning them. They're moving forward with that. So I don't think you're going to be able to get fireworks from Mendocino for sure that I know of to Sonoma County, and you can't get them in Marin. So that pretty much takes away the drivability. You have to be really motivated. So, okay, great. All right, then we will move on to our next item, fees for commercial cannabis permits. Boy, we got a lot of really great topics today.
well, maybe I'll start, and then Kevin's on the video conference, so I'll let him add to my brief agenda report. Susie has been working with our commercial cannabis businesses, through the audit process and Measure P in the payment of local excise taxes. So that's one aspect of when we refer to fees, and really that's locally adopted tax measure. The other component is that when the council established the ordinance, the cannabis ordinance, the way the permits are issued is as annual permits, and basically the staff has to renew the permits annually, or otherwise they would expire. And that was put in place to ensure that there's a process should a cannabis business not be operating in accordance with the ordinance. There was a mechanism to ensure that we had a way to address any of those operational concerns through the annual permitting process. So comes with the annual permitting process are the fees that are set by the fee schedule. And what we've heard, even predating the current local emergency, is that a number of the businesses have requested, either deferral of the fees or some consideration regarding reduction. More on the deferral side than the reduction, but almost all of the cannabis permittees have indicated that they would like to be able to pay over time. The issue is that we don't have a mechanism to allow payment over time. And what does that time frame look like?
You can't legally set up an escrow account, right, Gus?
I said 30 days based on the timing of the permit, but there really is no time frame for deferral. And so we wanted to put this on the agenda for discussion with the subcommittee to make to get your input and provide direction to staff on how we might want to address the annual permit fees. And then just as a reminder, I think this subcommittee at your previous meeting made a recommendation that staff bring forward a discussion item with council on reviewing the Measure P excise tax amount, which is currently 4.5%. So one option for the subcommittee would be to direct staff to research and bring forward options for the council to consider. But we did want to raise this issue because we've received this request by a number of our local cannabis businesses. And just as a reminder, the annual permit fees are really intended to be cost recovery, as relative to the amount of time that staff's involved in preparing and updating the permit. Of course, it's lesser than having to do it from the start, because once you've redone it, it's a little bit easier. But the other component to the fee is the audit, and that's an out-of-pocket expense. That part of that fee is intended to be paid to the city, so we can in turn pay the auditor to perform the audit work, which the firm that we've retained to do the cannabis audits is HDL, and they're a well-known and well-respected sales tax auditor. So that really concludes my overview. I don't know if Kevin, I hope I didn't steal all your thunder. You may have some additional input or insight. I wanted to share, Kevin, actually, as you know, cannabis businesses, even in light of the current emergency, are considered essential businesses. And there's been quite a bit of activity over the last 2 weeks, and Kevin's been busy working on the permitting process for some of our cannabis businesses in Cloverdale. So.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. We have about 3 requests right now for deferment or some kind of payment plan. As David mentioned, we did do that in the past for a short time for one of the cannabis permit holders. The fees are, they're not cheap. They're between $12,000 and $13,000 a year. A lot of that does go to pay for our auditing and my time and the chief's time and everyone else's time. So I think we said we would get back to these folks who have asked for deferments, and so that's kind of what we put on this agenda. if the subcommittee agrees with it, we can bring something to the council that makes sense, and we can do research in other cities, see if anyone else is doing something similar.
Mr. Mayor, did you have anything?
Thank you. Kevin, just real quick, it is a significant amount. How much of the 12 or 13,000 a year goes actually to the audit that's out of pocket on the city side? Any idea? I mean, is it?
That was around 6,000, wasn't it, Susie?
Yeah, 6,500.
65?
Yes.
About half. Okay. And then I guess my other question, it's kind of hard for me to get a grasp on, you know, without seeing the financial complexion of the individual business, it's hard to tell what type of percentage does that make up. We know right now that they pay 4.75% in a fee tax to the city. Can we back into what their gross sales are based on that?
We probably could. I mean, if we wanted to, I'm sure we could. It's not that hard to do if we know the 4% of their gross sales.
Well, I'm just wondering, is that a waste of time to maybe look at reducing these fees? If it's, I mean, I could see 6,500. That's, you know, it's got to be at least that. And then we need something in there to recover everybody's time. So is that overly harsh? Are we going to put them out of business?
Well, one approach might be to, you know, charge the initial when they first get the permit and then reduce the price for the annual renewal. That might be something that would make it take some of the sting out of it.
Well, and it's kind of audit roulette too, right, Kevin? Because you could be a tiny, you know, cottage shop, and your audits, I'm assuming the audit's $6,000. If you're, you know, 2 people and a, you know, shoebox, or if you're a bigger operation, right? It's $6,000. Am I wrong about that?
Yeah, it is, and an audit could come every other year as well. Yeah. We can certainly explore some of these things, and I'd be curious to see how other cities are handling it, which we haven't done yet. But
yeah,
I'm
just wondering. I was under the impression that it was the whoever we do an audit every year, and it's kind of pick your name out of a hat, or it's supposed to be random, but we don't have so many businesses that you kind of can't predict when your number is going to come up in the next, you know, couple of years. So I'm just wondering if that's how, that seems weird to me. Does it seem weird to anybody else? I mean, I'm just wondering if maybe, you know, if you know you're going to get audited in the next 5 years, is that part of your fee is earmarked, and your fee is going to, your fee is different because it's 4.7%. So, you know, a piece of your fee just gets earmarked every year to go toward your eventual audit.
Well, there are 2 things. The 4.7 is on the gross sales.
Okay.
And then the annual permit fee covers the audit.
Covers the audit. Okay, sorry, I got those mixed up. Okay, yeah, I'm just thinking I think the system would work fine if it were a much bigger, if we were a much bigger city and a much bigger industry, but I'm just not sure it's shaking out to be fair.
well, you know, I think we have it locked down based on the fact that, you know, if the businesses really take off, the model that we have in place is great. You know, in the meantime, we may have to do some adjustments. Kevin, I don't have a problem.
No, and I think you're right, Gus. It's just this is how much it costs to play, and then you're a percentage after. I think you're right. Yeah. And
Kevin, I don't have a problem with doing an audit every 2 years, as long as the business is up to date on their remittance on a monthly basis to us. Somebody who's falling behind, it's a red flag that we should get out there and take a look to see what's going on. I think the chief, you know, from a security standpoint, you know, he's got to stay involved to make sure that they still have all the requirements in place, you know, that the surveillance cameras are working, and you know, the doors are locked, and you know, there's no duct tape over things that you know, should be accessible, if that made sense. So, but that's kind of how I feel about it.
Well, we can take a look at it and bring back some options for the full council's consideration. In terms of the three outstanding, we can either let them have a little more time while we work this out, or we can be more insistent that they pay the current rate. I don't know what your opinion is on that.
Well, my opinion on that is I would at least like to see us get the audit fee recovered. I mean, that's something that comes right out of our pocket. And then I don't know what that dollar amount is to cover the chief's time and the policing time that we need on that particular business. So
Maybe we should audit ourselves.
Well, I
Make
think
sure it's fair.
yeah, I think when the fee was established, there was a little bit of guesswork. I think just to say, how many times do you think the police need to go out there and what the actual staff time
Right.
is. We may be able to refine that based on, having these businesses up and running for a couple years.
Well, I think what I'm seeing, or I'm gonna, Susie, just, go ahead and pipe in, because I have a comment, but.
Okay, I just want to just add to that we did set based on hours, and then when we brought it back, we cut it in half. So just so you know, we did that.
Okay. Oh, thank you. That helps. Yeah. Well, and I think that, so my comment was going to be that this isn't the first time we're going to hear this, and it's not going to be the only industry. They're, as a group, they're a pretty significant employer and a pretty significant source of, revenue for the city, sales tax, excise, you name it. And the people who work in those businesses live here, and they shop at the grocery stores, and they buy gas locally, and they do all that kind of stuff. So, on Friday, when I'm talking to the legislative group, this is going to be one of the things I'm going to bring up, which is, and really the impetus behind this is that, is there any way the city can work with us on their fees? Because we don't mind paying those. We want to pay those because we see the benefit locally, but the California Cannabis Bureau, we don't see the benefit, and they're taxing the heck out of us. And so, I think something's actually got to give at the CBC. And that's going to be one of my questions on Friday, is that, every agency is going to be asked to make concessions. And I think that, one of the difficulties with the CBC is that they've been pretty unresponsive before this crisis. They've been really heavily taxing a nascent industry and not providing the services that they need to, like protecting people's license numbers by, having the online tools up to date, stuff, just being able to provide a service for what the industry is paying for. I think that they see the value in what the Cloverdale government does for them, and they see it every day, but they're not seeing it at the state. And that's where, and so they were just coming to us saying, help, which I respect. I really respect people who come and say, this is the problem I'm having, and until we get it solved at the state level, can you help us? So, I mean, I guess I'd like to see more information on, what it is we could possibly do for them, but also I'm gonna ask the mayor and all the other council members to, make this an issue for them when they're lobbying, because I think that the industry is right, is that if we want to see locally owned businesses, local jobs, the CBC has got to take some of the heat off. And I think, we're going to see that. I mean, my LLC fee is due this month. So, so I can relate. I'm like, if I can, and if I, and if we're saying, if the state's saying you can hold on to some of your sales tax money because it's money you have in the bank that you just haven't paid yet, you're going to be able to hold on to that and then pay it later without fees. We're going to have to do that. We're going to be repeating this process over and over again in so many areas. So, and since they asked for help before, it's like, I can't, I can't justify saying, oh, well, now I can't afford to do this.
Yeah. Madam Chair, you've mentioned before that we're partners with them. They're part of the community. They provide the income for us, and we do need to work with them when we can. Kevin,
Yeah.
are they audited on a state level?
I'm not sure. I know the state does check their books, and I have heard that comment from some of the business owners that, hey, you don't really need to do this because the state is doing it.
Yeah.
I don't know that much about it, but I certainly can look into that and see if maybe there's something to that.
Yeah, maybe
Let's track that down.
Maybe we can get a clean bill of health certificate or something from the auditing company that does it from the state. And Dave, it probably is HDL that does that as well. So, because I think they're the number one in the country, aren't they? Okay.
Mayor, is that what you're asking?
Go ahead, David. You're saying that HDL is probably the top auditor for municipal services.
Well, Madam Chair and Mayor, I think you've given staff direction. We'll do some additional research on the fees. I think just from my perspective, we as staff would recommend covering staff costs with the fees, but maybe there's some flexibility around the audit. I know it's been a lot of work for the finance director, and we really don't pick and choose. We said everyone for first year was going to be subject to the audit requirement, but whether we need to do that every year is something we can evaluate further and see if there are tools. And then that could be something, Madam Chair, that we could explore is see if the Bureau of Cannabis Control, since the bulk of the fees from the state go to support them, are they providing some kind of mechanism for local cities to log in and check revenues? I mean, then that provides us at least with some data we need around what they're reporting to us. The other item, the other kind of consideration, I think, when council chose to include an audit provision in the enabling legislation was to enable the cannabis businesses to also be more effective and ensure that they're complying and to address issues quickly rather than have them go on for a long time through that process. It seems like because of the guidelines being so well established, that might be an area where we can relieve them of some of that, because I know an annual audit and the workload for us is significant. I'm sure it's significant for them. We might be able to do that through kind of their annual permit, where it's every couple of years rather than an annual fee, and that would have the effect of lowering their fee. But I think we've heard the direction. We'll research that and we'll bring it back for council consideration.
Great, thank you. Okay.
And I just want to point out that I just did a quick and dirty, and in the last year, 12-month period, it's been approximately $4 million in gross revenues that have been reported, and in the last 16 months, it's been $5 million.
Okay. Oh, Gus, you gotta unmute yourself.
That's a lot of money. So
Pretty good for a little baby local industry.
yeah. And I think our initial costs were up front, getting everything set up. And now it should just be, hopefully our costs have been reduced a little bit. So let's see what you come up with.
Yeah, I'll look forward to it at the next meeting. Okay, great. Moving on to item F, options for calendar sharing. It's not me.
I'm gonna refer to you on this. I'm not certain where this item was generated and what.
Oh, I remember. Yeah, it was at the council meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, other council members were complaining that they were being invited to meetings that they had put on, vacation and couldn't see, other people's calendars. So did anybody do any research into sharing Outlook calendars and coming up with a policy for council members and city staff to share their information?
Well, you know, Madam Chair, if I could just say, you know, I don't care what you have on your calendar. I don't care what David has on his. I just want to be able to go look at a calendar, not that I need to see when I have subcommittee meetings or when our council meetings are. I'm not so sure that David needs to look at my calendar before he schedules something. This was brought up by Councilmember Brigham because she had a vacation scheduled. And I believe that was on the 18th when we were going to do our, what the heck were we going to do on the 18th?
We're going to do our budget or
Yes.
Goal setting.
Goal
setting or
setting.
budget.
Right.
It's all aboard.
Right.
Yeah.
So that got postponed anyhow, but you know, she didn't know about the 18th and she went ahead and made her vacation. So if we could just have a calendar, some people do need it apparently, where we just have all of the city council meetings, the subcommittee meetings, and any special meetings posted. I think that's all they're asking for, to be honest with you.
Well, it's all on the thing is it's confusing because it's all on the website.
Okay.
I think that the issue is that there isn't really one place where we're using an Outlook calendar where we see all of the potential conflicts. I think that was, you know, I think that was the, we you know, or if we wanted to, you know, schedule a meeting with another council member or schedule a meeting with Kevin or David or something, you can't see, you know, it's it is like playing, it's like playing whack-a-mole over email. It's like, well, how about Thursday at 3? Oh, no, I have a meeting. Well, how about, you know, Friday at 1? Well, I have a meeting. So, you know, functionally, there is something to be said for there being a common calendar where we can at least see, we can at least see where, you know, people are busy or available.
Well, you know, and going along those lines, I mean, there's specific days that I have absolutely nothing, and that's by choice. You know, I've blocked those days off either to get caught up on paperwork or to just take some mental health time. And I'm sure David and the chief and staff is the same way. You know, this afternoon, I'm going to get caught up on my pile, and I don't want to have any meetings. So, you know, I don't know.
What do you have, Susie?
Well, I was just going to say that there is the ability to use the scheduler when you're doing an Outlook invite, and you can see who has time blocked off. I don't know if that's helpful or not.
Yeah. I don't know. What does the clerk think?
You're really good at doing that and using the work calendar. Some council members don't use the Outlook system, and they rely on just kind of verbal comments, and it becomes difficult to track. I think the city clerk Irene suggested maybe we could do kind of a rolling calendar where we put down like you suggested, Mayor. You know, maybe the next 3 months, you put what subcommittees, what dates, and any special meetings that might be scheduled. And that would be an opportunity for council to say, oh, I'm going to be gone that week, or I'm going to be at the league, or you know, have a conflict or whatever. Because I think ultimately it just requires that we communicate. But because we have so many subcommittee meetings and other important regional board meetings, it's very hard to schedule sometimes workshops and other things when everybody's available. I think it's almost impossible.
It's advanced whack-a-mole.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you. And if I may just jump in, I think that's really what it was. It's just defining, okay, what do we really want? Do we want access to everybody's calendars, or do we just want to see, you know, like with the meeting of the 18th, I don't know if maybe the appointment, you know, was missed or something happened. I know that I have to practice more often sending out appointments to everybody, just to know that there's a meeting on their calendar, and preferably not when the agenda goes out, but make it a better effort to do it for the entire year, or as soon as we know that comes up. But I think that's what will be helpful to staff. It's just defining what it is that the council wants to see. What types of meetings.
I just want to make sure that we're not, you know, I mean, one thing that I am not going to do, I spend so much of my time scheduling meetings, and I am not going to schedule them in 2 places. You can forget it. It's not going to happen. You know, anybody who wants it can have access to my calendar. I think, I know David and Kevin have access, can see my calendar. At least I've given them permission. If I need to do it over again, I will. But if everybody's using the tools, using Outlook, and then if we at the beginning of the year or when something gets scheduled, it's like all of the subcommittee meetings get put on. Irene sends out an invitation saying, this is the begin date, this is the end date, and then these are all of the regular meetings. So it's on all of the appropriate calendars, so hopefully then council members will get in the habit of using the Outlook calendar for reference, but then they'll also see, it's like, okay, that budget meeting is scheduled that day, I can't, do XYZ, that kind of stuff. So, I don't know how to get people to do that, but I do that for a living. I try to get people to adopt technology, but I still, there's only so much I can do.
Look, as far as I'm concerned, we're running a corporation, and no one person should run the corporation. It's what we have to do as council members to accommodate staff with the multitasking that they have to do. So I think our schedule should revolve around when they want to schedule something.
Yeah.
And nobody wants to look at my calendar, which I have on my phone, and then it rolls to my computer. I have doctor's appointments on there. I have budget information on that. It's all meshed together with my city functions. So
yeah.
But whatever you guys want to do.
I think that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm really making an effort. I keep my calendar up to date, and I keep it from. So the way that I do it, and it's not going to, everybody's not going to want to do this, but the way that I keep my head screwed on straight and know where I'm supposed to be, except for when I'm on lockdown, when I'm usually running all over the place, is that I invite my city, from my personal account, I invite my city account so that it always appears on my my Outlook calendar. And so Kevin and David can know I'm at a league event. I'm at a Sonoma Clean Power meeting. So everybody can just see, it's like, okay, she's not here, which is like, usually that's the case. I'm not here. But I mean, if you kind of, can find a system that works for you so that at least the city activities are accounted for on the Outlook calendar. Because I mean, you're right, Gus, if they want a meeting, they need the meeting, but they can't have the meeting if I also have a board meeting. So, and that's all, I think those are often the conflicts. It's like, well, I have an executive board meeting with the League of Cities and I fly out the night before. I'm not going to be at the meeting. So, yeah. So, I mean, I just wouldn't, I guess I would encourage the staff to, the next step is look at how we can do some training around using Outlook calendar as well as using OneDrive. Because I think that would also save us a lot of time and energy. You're right, Gus, is that we should be operating like a company, and we're operating, kind of siloed because we just constantly email each other over and over again about documents and meetings, and it's a lot of wasted time and it's a lot of inefficiency. And if we could have a place where we store documents and work on projects together on OneDrive, I think maybe work with Mark and see if we could roll out some training on some more efficient practices as far as sharing calendars, but also document sharing and project management.
Chair Bevy, that's a great recommendation. I think maybe with OneDrive, sharing a master calendar, and ensuring that all council members and staff use that as a place that if to put any kind of significant activities, if they're going to be on vacation or attending a conference or something like that. That way we can use that as a good go-to tool when we try to schedule any special meetings.
But again, I'm only going to do it once.
Right.
I'm only going to put it on my calendar. I'm not filling out 2 calendars. You can forget it. I have to draw the line because it just becomes unmanageable. So, if we can find a way to have a master calendar that feeds in from our individual calendars, that would be great. So let's figure out if we can make that work on Outlook.
We got it.
Okay, great. So I guess we're going to move on to standing items and an update on Sonoma County homeless emergency response.
All right. Well, part of the emergency operation center, there's been a task force stood up to address homelessness. Kevin has been participating on the calls, and when I can fit it in amongst the other calls, I join as well. There is quite a bit of discussion around this local emergency and how to address homelessness. One of the issues is providing shelter to facilitate coaching the homeless into a shelter-in-place location. The issue has been working through the logistics of how that's done, finding a hotel that will accommodate that, or multiple hotels, and then along with that, and probably more importantly, is the host of services that, in order to get reimbursement through FEMA and ensure that the costs are covered, there is a protocol that needs to be followed, which is fairly challenging to meet. It requires 3 meals a day plus snacks, plus all the appropriate personal care products, possible mental health and medical services, and then on top of that, the need for security. There's been a lot of debate and discussion about the process to accomplish that. The initial exercise was to take the in-sheltered population and to move those to into hotels. Santa Rosa was the first to do that, and now they are actually confronted with moving it from their main shelter to, I think it was the Sandman Hotel, the Sandman, and now the Sandman's looking at possibly wanting to close. And the cost to move all those folks was let's say I think several $100,000. Out of the city had to fund it directly, and I don't know where they're in relative to their daily costs, but it continues to be discussed at the weekly homeless emergency EOC task force on how to address the needs of the homeless, during the shelter in place. What we've done locally is kind of an alternative strategy is to procure some food resources through the Redwood Empire Food Bank, and then utilizing Reach for Home to actually deliver food out to the homeless and to continue to support them kind of sheltering in place, and trying to avoid them commingling in a way that is adverse to the social distancing protocols. But even that in itself is a challenge. In addition to working on that, the county did provide portalettes. We did have one delivered, and it was placed near the kind of close proximity to the entrance to River Park by the parking area near the cemetery, with a hand washing station, and that was again intended to provide a facility that could be used by the homeless population, and also to have the hand washing station in close proximity. So it's really kind of three aspects to it: is providing the sheltering, providing food, and ensuring that they have some receptacles to use for those folks that are and continue to be that aren't in a shelter. So with that, I'll turn it over to Kevin if he wants to provide more detail on his sessions.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I just got off the homeless meeting right before this meeting, so you're right. The city of Santa Rosa secured some Sandman rooms, but now they're out. But the county has 30. They really have two things. They have the hotels, and then they have the FEMA trailers at the fairgrounds. So they have secured 30 hotel rooms at the Astro Hotel. I think that's on Santa Rosa Avenue South somewhere. and then the 10 FEMA trailers at the fairgrounds. And really, this all came about because they weren't meeting the distance. They weren't meeting the distance requirements at Sam Jones. So these rooms and trailers are for people who are really homeless, over 60, who are very vulnerable. And so it seems like it's. Oh, they also didn't say who, but they did provide. They did get a service provider to provide the services like David just described, and they also have someone for security under contract as well. So they're not giving all the information, but that's pretty much it. Initially, they did ask us if we had any hotel owners in Cloverdale who might be interested, and I did a little sniffing around, but it didn't seem like people were interested. So really, it's a combination of hotel rooms and trailers. And again, these aren't for people who are positive, because the people who are positive, even if they're homeless, will be directed to a hospital or to the alternative care site, which is the other committee I've been involved with, and they're about to make a big release of information regarding where that's going to be. So that's pretty much it. It's, they came on real strong at first about getting hotel rooms, and then something changed, and I don't know exactly what, but they sort of backed off, probably the cost. But they do have 30 rooms at the Astro, 10 trailers, and that's for the overflow, really, of Sam Jones, where they can't keep people with the social distancing protocols.
Can I ask a question, Kevin? Are they still using Sam Jones, just lowering the capacity?
Yeah, they are. They're still using Sam Jones.
Heard.
And then the people who are getting the rooms, really, again, are over 60 and are more vulnerable.
Mr. Mayor, did you have something?
Now, I was talking to a couple of homeless folks yesterday, or I should say a couple of folks in the plaza, and they haven't seen Reach for Homes lately. Last week, the week before when I checked, they were seeing them. And yesterday they said that they haven't seen them in a couple of days. So I'm not sure if they just missed them or what's going on there. So I'll follow up with them again tomorrow and just see what's going on.
Could we have Kevin or David check in with Colleen?
Happy to do that. I just took a note that I'll follow up with Colleen Carmichael. My understanding is they were trying to provide service twice a week. Ideally, they would like it if they were able to do it daily, but they were also concerned that the impact on their volunteer base, but also just coming into contact every day with the homeless population from a health perspective. They were concerned about that. So they were really trying to be strategic as best they could in bringing those food resources to them, Gus. But I will follow up and see what the current schedule is.
Great, thank you. Anything else on this item?
I did ask for an additional hand washing station for the Broad Street porta potty, and they're going to get back to me. So that's a possibility. If they can't provide it, then we may just provide it ourselves.
Do we have anything at the yard that would be appropriate, or we just have to rent it?
I think Recology provides them, but I don't know all the details.
Okay.
I think that we just have that porta potty there with no hand washing, so we want
to. Yeah, there needs to be a hand washing station there, without a doubt. Okay, great. All right, well, unless there's anything else, we'll move on to the water leak data. This show must go on. Oh, Susie, if that's you, you got to unmute.
I don't think we have any updates since the last meeting on this one.
Okay.
Mayor, Mayor and Chair, if I can, it's not a perfect fit, but I did want to bring this up relative to the water leak data. One of the discussions was whether we would be able to move to a new meter or ERD that enables better tracking when there are water leaks. And unfortunately, in to compound the local emergency, we have experienced a situation where our handheld system, our computers, has not been functioning properly. And so we've had to revert back to manual reads. But in doing so, we've explored an alternative, which we are going to put together a program for council consideration to transfer from our current meter reading technology to a new type that wouldn't require those very expensive handheld devices, and we could move to iPads where the data is uploaded directly into the cloud. So it would be much more efficient. And as part of that program, move to electronic readers that report through the through the cellular system, which ultimately, with some additional investments, could provide real-time data to customers. And so that's what we're working on right now. Is I mean, one, simply almost as on an emergency basis to transition from these handheld computers to an iPad-based system, but using funds that are in the budget, also starting to implement the new meters, electronic read systems that would enable us to do much better reads, but also the real-time data analytics, which I think would help to address, I think, what was some of the concern that kind of brought this issue up was, that we don't necessarily see a leak until we get those reads, and it can be several weeks later when the water's been leaking, and obviously the dollar signs are the cost of providing that water is also going up with those leaks. So anyways, Susie's team has been working on this with our water team, and we hope to bring something forward pretty quickly. But we are, because it's an emergency issue, we've been working on this to try to find a solution to resolve the issue with our handhelds.
Right, and I'll just add quickly that when David says we're doing manual reads, that we are literally paper and pencil going out to each meter and writing it down, and then bringing it back, and then somebody has to input. And so the cost, we did have budgeted for a Badger meter or reader. And instead of doing that, we found that if we move to Neptune and buy the 2 tablets, we could do, and the software, we could do it all cheaper than buying the 1 Badger handheld. So, and moving to this allows the process that David just talked about then we can add the meters, and I'm not an expert on water, but you add something to the top of the meter that then will radio read, and we can move in that direction.
Do you have anything, Mr. Mayor? Okay. Yeah, it sounds like moving in the right direction, more efficient and cheaper. So that's exciting. Okay, well then on that, we will move on to an update on pension liability legislation.
Madam Chair, don't really have any updates, though PERS is obviously going to be impacted by the financial crisis, or at least the financial impacts of the current emergency. And it'll be interesting just to see what impact this might have on the PERS investment portfolio and what that means for our unfunded liabilities. And so this is something we will have to continue to track and take a look at and see how the situation unfolds and what that impact is going to be. But I haven't seen much in terms of additional legislation or other financing tools been rolled out during this current emergency.
I think they're just waiting for they're just waiting to see how far it's going to fall. It's been looking pretty bad. I don't know if everybody else is watching it, but not look good.
Hopefully they're buying smart right now.
That's right. Yeah, they're buying low, selling high. That is the idea. Do you have anything else for us, Gus?
I'm fine. Thank you.
No. Yeah, we're at wait and see. Okay. So moving on to the next item is update on development of draft ordinances to address downtown vacancies. And I mean, I have an initial idea that we might want to table this item for a little while. I don't know, to see what the mayor thinks about that.
No, I agree with you. Now's not the time to be talking about that. That's for sure.
Is that enough feedback?
Thank you,
Yeah.
Chair.
That's the staff direction.
To bring forward a discussion item, but given the current emergency, we'll just put that in the hold file for the time being.
Yeah. After harassing and haranguing Kevin for this, like, sorry, Kevin.
Yeah, well, maybe we'll do it
So
someday.
I want to mention he did prepare the agenda report, and it was ready to bring forward. We held off because we knew it was going to be a discussion item, and we were trying to just put stuff onto the consent calendar. But we'll be ready to bring this forward again when the current situation subsides.
Okay, great. I'm sure it was good work, Kevin. I'm sorry about that.
No worries.
I think we're gonna have a lot of items like that before long. So the next item is business license and TOT.
Susie, maybe you can share with council. I know this was something we were looking at for the next fiscal year budget. I don't know if you,
Right.
if you
So-
received a proposal yet.
I did receive a proposal. I don't know if it's attached, but I know the TOT and the business license both. I got proposal from HDL, and they basically recommended that they just take over the whole administration of it, that it was almost cheaper to do it that way. And they charged $650. Oh, you know what? I can't remember the numbers, so I don't want to make them up. But I'll bring it back to the next one. How about that?
Yeah, and Madam Chair, I'm not so sure that now's the time for us to be looking at any of that as well, especially the TLT and even the business licenses. So you're on mute, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much for reminding me. So how does staff feel about that? I would tend to agree.
Yeah,
I'm fine with that.
I think that's fine.
Okay, and so for some reason we have update on Measure P and cannabis permits again, so.
Well, that was just a standing item.
Oh, that's a standing item, okay.
Included in the agenda is the revenue report for the Measure P excise tax.
Yeah, and I would like to point out that currently we have 2 businesses that are past due. One is only a month past due, and the other is 4 months. And then, well, actually, I guess it's 5 now with March, 5 months past due. So I'm working hard trying to get them to make a payment. And I'm also working with legal trying to get a letter together that basically says this is your 30-day notice.
Okay. I guess we'll hear more about it at the next subcommittee meeting.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, and then update on goal setting. What are our new goals, Mr. City Manager?
Well, Madam Chair and Mayor, on March 18th, the staff did a very abbreviated overview and presentation of our original proposed goal statements. The goal statements were intended to be reflective of that the staff has a pretty significant work program already, but we did want to identify what we thought were some goals for the council consideration in 5 topical areas.
Mm-hmm.
After that presentation, staff hasn't received any feedback, and we understand why. I guess I think we are proposing to kind of continue. I don't think anything has changed in terms of the goal statements in and of themselves, in terms of being priority for the council and the city. But you know, it may be something that we will want to adapt, given the nature of the crisis that we're in, and particularly as we, you know, as we gain a better understanding of what the ultimate impacts are. But I think even with that said, the way the goals were written might even capture some of what needs to be done to address some of the you know, some of the issues that we're going to confront. For example, one of the goals was to maximize, you know, revenue, and I think that's something you know, we're still going to seek to do. Obviously, reflecting that there's some sensitivity with the community where it impacts their pocketbook in this what might be a sensitive economy, but still looking at creative strategies around how we can continue to, you know, collect revenue to provide the vital public services that our community demands. Likewise, on infrastructure, to continue to implement those very important infrastructure improvement projects, which I think is going to be so vital to kickstarting our economy once this crisis is done. And then also with technology, investing in technology to the extent that we can afford it, where it provides for efficiencies. And I think, you know, we're seeing the product of that right now. We're able to meet remotely using this technology, and if we build on that and, for example, build in where we can provide services, you know, online that encourages how we provide service at a lower cost. I think those are all things that we can continue to address. So I'm obviously wasn't prepared to walk through all those goals. I just want to remind council that we did provide those. I think it's still a good idea to identify some goals, you know, for our budget, but we may want to tweak those a little bit based on, you know, what we're going through.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, did you have something for us? I just, yeah, you didn't hear back from me on that. I've been a little busy. So, but I guess we just have to table this, and we'll know in the next couple of months when it's going to be appropriate to go back, because I think that, you know, I think Supervisor Gore phrased it yesterday in their district call is like, well, right now, well, we're in the trench. Yeah, we're at war. And, you know, we're following the orders of the health department, and they're the ones who are really in charge. And we're just doing what they're telling us to do to enable everybody to stay home. You know, that's our job right now. But I also think that, and, you know, I've discussed this with the mayor and city manager, is that, you know, while we're concentrating on providing vital services, and I think that the example of the water meter technology is a great, you know, it's where we needed to go anyway. So, and it's a great opportunity to do it now. We also have to have our eye on where being ready when stimulus money does become available. So I think that we're in really good shape, and we're actually, you know, kind of ahead of the game because of the projects that we submitted to SCTA. Saying, you know, these are our projects that are ready to go. So whatever we can kind of do in our, you know, spare time, which is, I know it's laughable, but whatever we can do to say, you know, what can we do to prepare for when there is stimulus money, construction money, because that's, you know, really what's going to pull everybody out of this. It's just, it's an economic, it's a health disaster, and it's an economic disaster as well. So, but I think we're pretty well positioned in just the work that we've already done and have ready to go.
You know, Madam Chair, I was watching President Trump.
I'm sorry.
Accidentally. I mean, it
was incidental.
I was kind of flipping through the channels, and he was talking, and I was listening a little bit, but he said, you know, he's getting sick and, I'll paraphrase, he's getting sick and tired of sending millions of dollars overseas, and we can't even fix potholes in this country. So I think the big push after this, part of the recovery package, is going to be infrastructure repair. And you know, that leads to the next topic of street improvements. And the more shovel ready we can be, I think the better our chances are to get some of that money somehow. So
Yeah,
I agree. We need to be shovel ready.
yeah, that's gonna be step one. But yeah, I don't think we have enough information to know when we should even start planning. If that makes any sense. I don't know. What are the city manager's thoughts on that?
Well, I think the challenge before us is to do our best effort on some revenue forecasts, because that's really going to inform our budgeting process. There's a tremendous amount of uncertainty. I think we're going to be okay on coming up with reasonable estimates on the property tax side. The bigger challenge is going to be on both the sales tax side and the TOT side. You know what, and then probably third are city fees. So you know, we're going to be reliant on, you know, other entities like the state to kind of help us better understand what the revenue picture is going to look like in sales tax revenue. If, you know, with the language that the governor has indicated that, you know, businesses have 12 months for deferment, you know, that could have a real impact on our cash flow. And so we need to be prepared to figure out what we're going to do if we have a cash flow issue, but also how is that going to factor into, you know, what we budget. So, you know, we got to start working on, you know, some forecasts and some different scenarios to bring forward to council for council's consideration on, you know, kind of picking a scenario. And I will tend to advance, you know, probably something that's more along the worst case, just because I think it's prudent to be conservative in these types of situations. But we'll, you know, we'll need to look at that, and, you know, we need to start, you know, really as soon as possible to start having that conversation with council around, you know, what are the impacts from a budgetary perspective of, you know, all the things that are happening right now.
Did you have anything more, Mr. Mayor?
Well, you know, it was my understanding that if for any reason the sales tax was postponed, it would be backfilled by Sacramento. So I'm not sure how they would do that if they don't have the numbers, but they were saying if they postpone it, they'd backfill it. So
yeah, that was my understanding as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and the other item too is that, I mean, I hope I'm not going too far afield on the agenda, but since people are working, I'm assuming that the annex is unoccupied, unless they're staggering their work hours.
Are you referring, Madam Chair, to the Public Works Annex?
Yes.
They've been staggering. Eric's been in, and then Mark rotates in. Mark, our city engineer, and then also our building inspector. He does a daily call in to check which, you know, what permits and where the, you know, whether there's any inspections. But given there's only 3 staff in that annex, we've been really, they've been coordinating pretty well on ensuring the social distancing protocol.
Yeah, and that's, you know, but I think that's just it's an example of what we're going to have to look at in the future as far as, you know, our facilities and our expenses. It's what everybody's having to do right now, and saying, well, gee, maybe people work from home, or maybe people, you know, share office space, which I know it's not optimal when there's a virus going on, but you know, I think that this is going to, it's going to change how we look at our budget in the coming year. I mean, I kind of see the items as far as the battery or generator backup and the battery backup for City Hall being, that's essential. I mean, I you know, that just has to, that should have happened years ago. And so I would see items like that needing to move forward as far as like necessary infrastructure, especially preparing for PSPSs and other emergencies. But, you know, we're going to really have to take a look at our expenses and find out, you know, and maybe with the new uses of technology, maybe some of them are, you know, we're going to change how we work, and we won't be the only ones. So yeah, that's my 2 cents as far as that is concerned. So Mayor, did you have anything else? No? Okay. All right, next we'll move on to informational only memos. What do we have? City Manager, do we have anything? I guess we covered those in correspondence. Okay. I never understand why that's on there. Anyway, future agenda items, discuss options for funding street improvements and paving.
I think, Mayor, I think this was an item that you asked us maybe to take a look at it, whether there was an ability for us to bond possibly for future street improvements.
Yeah, I think this is on hold with everything else. So we'll move on to pending items. Seeing none, good of the order. Did you have anything for us, Mr. Mayor?
I do, and it's for Irene. Just a couple of quick questions, and or for anybody that knows the answer. I didn't print out my agenda packet, and I'm on this meeting now, and I can't see my agenda packet. So how do is there a way to do both? Be on the meeting here and review my agenda packet, especially for the city council meetings. I mean, I don't print them out anymore. I just print out the first couple pages. So how do we manage to do that? And if you don't know the answer, that's fine.
Well, I think it's pretty simple, guys. If you go in the upper right-hand corner and put your pointer over the little icons there, there's something called enter full screen or exit full screen. And that will unlock the window so that you can move it around and find other stuff.
All right, so I can shrink it down at some point?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And actually, I think also at the top, it's in the upper right. Just if you go to exit full screen, that should allow you to move the screen and then view at least that's how it works on, well, I should really look at it on my, I'd have to have Zoom open on my iPad, but yeah, I'm on my computer right now.
Yeah, I'm not seeing that. And then secondly.
Oh, you and I can do that. We'll do a practice session maybe tomorrow.
That sounds
before
good.
The meeting. Okay.
All right.
And then my meeting, Mayor.
I'm sorry?
I'm looking at my iPad, and when you hit more in the right-hand corner.
Yes.
It says minimize meeting.
Oh, there you go. That's probably it. It's just
okay.
It's different lingo.
You can.
Gotcha. Okay, I see. All right. Well, I'll play with that. And then Irene, I see here that that you're the host, and you're recording the meeting. So now, when you're recording that, can that be posted to the webpage so people can look at our meeting, or how does that work?
Yes, that is the intent.
Okay.
So my goal is to post it.
That can go up to YouTube.
Okay. And will that actually be housed on our server, or will it be on Zoom's server?
No, it's downloading right now onto my computer. Okay. And then we'll house it internal, and then of course online on our own website.
Good. So we'll have it forever. Good.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah, Zoom is not forever. Good point.
Yeah.
Mayor, one of the things that I asked Irene to take a look at, and I think we need to test it in case it comes up, and and if it's beneficial for us to do it, is my understanding is we can Zoom, or we can stream Zoom meetings to Facebook. And I'm not suggesting that for subcommittee meetings, but if we wanted to do a meeting and have it be live on Facebook, I think we have the ability to do that, but that just requires a little more testing on our end to make it work effectively. So
yeah, I think you can also live stream to the YouTube channel.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm not exactly. I know that you can do that from a browser to YouTube. You can just stream live. I'm not sure about the Zoom capability, but that's probably an easy Google search to find out about that.
Okay.
Yeah, I noticed the Mendocino County Board of Supervisors had the Facebook thing like you were describing, David.
Yeah.
They were zooming it to
Yeah, there's
Facebook.
probably a Facebook plugin for Zoom.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably, and it may be one available for YouTube, but we could probably figure that out, so.
And Madam Chair, I was just playing with this and I've got it now. I know how
Oh,
to,
good,
I
good.
know how to
Well,
shrink it and pull something up. So
there
I'll
you
be
go.
fine.
If you need some help tomorrow, we can do a pre-meeting, so.
Okay, I think
Call
I
me if
got
you-
it.
Call me if you need it. Okay. And then
Okay.
other items on good of the order, I just wanted to give everybody a heads up that Kevin Fixler from the Press Democrat called me. Was that yesterday? Yeah, it was yesterday. We spoke about, just, any issues that he thought needed follow-up, or coverage from the PD. And I believe I sicked him on Kevin and the chief. So.
Yeah, we responded. The housing stuff was pretty basic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, he tried to pump me for information about police activities. And I think I gave him the right answer. I said, you're gonna have to talk to my chief about that. So I did not fall for that one. Not this time anyway. So, anything else for good of the order? All right, if not, then we will adjourn to our next.
Quickly.
Yes.
Sorry.
Sorry.
I did see a comment come in. So this is from Deborah Howell. I believe it goes back to standing item G on the discussion on goal setting and funding. She says, we need to start planning now. That she does have a list of funding that is in the 3 different legislation acts already passed.
Okay.
There are buckets of money for state, county, cities. But if you're not ready, then the money will run out. So if staff wants to get in contact with her, then we can.
Thank you, Debbie. That's a great reminder. I just probably going back to good of the order for a moment. The CARE Act and all the other legislation, it's something that I know I'm following very closely. I know the mayor is following very closely. I pretty much spend most of my days on the phone, either on legislative committee calls or calls with the league, doing webinars that are, in SBA information or, items that the Institute for Local Government are putting out, that the league is putting out. I'm just, constantly engaged on those items. And I think that you're absolutely right, is that while we're addressing these immediate issues, we have to have an eye toward recovery. And I know that that's a topic of constant conversation with the city manager and the mayor and me as we're talking with our fellow council members throughout the county, engaging with the supervisor's call. The mayor's on a weekly mayor's call. And we're following up on that information and looking at how we're going to be planning for the recovery. That's what we're focused on. Unfortunately, our city manager is a former, he's a community development wonk. So, and so is Kevin, and we have a really good team there. And I think that that's really going to be what's taking up our time and attention for the next year, the next several years. That's what we're going to be hyper focused on. So thanks for the reminder. And then let's get that item on the next agenda for next month, is starting to look at where we can plug in for funding. Does that sound like a plan?
It does.
All right. Any other comments for the good of the order?
Nothing here.
Okay. All right. Well, with that, then we will take a second swipe at this, and we will adjourn until our next meeting, which is Tuesday, May 5th.
All right. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, staff.
Thank you, everybody.
Well,